Good Vibes Only is here to take you on a journey to discover the weird and wacky world of wellness. It's brought to you by the globally renowned skin and wellness expert Marie Reynolds, who holds over 36 years of experience within the skin and wellbeing industry. Each week, Marie shares her own holistic lifestyle hacks and chats to other leading wellness experts to find out their good vibe story, discussing how they deal with day-to-day stress, anxiety, sleep, and skin issues. Listen in as Marie explores why, when it comes to our health and wellness, we need to look beyond the linear, question the norm, and think outside the box.
Lisa Potter Dixon is the darling of the beauty industry. She is a well-known makeup artist and has been featured many times on Lorraine and This Morning, as well as being an author and having numerous resources on her fantastic website, lisapotterdixon.com. Now, Lisa has suffered from endometriosis for many, many years. And a little while back, I reached out to her because she was in debilitating pain and I knew that I could help her. So this podcast is a little bit different. This podcast is Lisa interviewing me, and you can watch the episode on her YouTube channel or via her website under endometriosis. So if you are a sufferer, if you do suffer from endometriosis or any issues concerning your periods, grab yourself a cup of tea and have a listen.
I'm joined by the wonderful Marie Reynolds, who you've heard me speak about a lot over the past few months. But actually, Marie, before that, because I love your skincare so much. You're not just a magician, you also are a magician of skincare, but we'll talk a little bit more about that. So just to give you guys a little insight into my endometriosis, I probably had it really since I started my period, I was actually 11. I was very, very young. My mum had it as well. So there is some kind of evidence that it can be hereditary. So it was kind of going to happen to me in some respect, but my other sister doesn't have it. I've never found anything that can really help me. I've had 6 laparoscopies. So a laparoscopy is when they do an operation, you're put to sleep for a couple of hours and maybe an hour, and they do a little camera inside, it's almost in your belly button, and then just another one down slightly. And they burn away any of the endometriosis, because the disease, in a really easy self-explanatory way, is that it means that when you bleed externally, you also bleed internally. So it clogs together a lot of the time, your womb, your bowel, like all of that, and kind of creates a real hostile environment. And it's very painful. It's a chronic disease, but the unfortunate thing, as you know, myself and Marie know, is that no one really knows much about it. And it's actually only recently in the past kind of year that the doctors and the medical field and the BBC have been doing a lot more research on it and talking about it a lot more. And actually 1 in 10 women have it. So you might not even know you've got it, right? And you might think, I'm in agony, not just on my periods, but when I ovulate, or when there's so many different times you can be in pain at any point. For some people, it's crippling. I have stage 4, which is the worst, but I also have a very strong mind, which we'll go more into later about why what Marie has done with me has worked. But I have a very strong mind, so I don't let things affect my mind. They just affect my body, and then I'm still in control of it. So for me, things like exercise have been a massive, massive help. And we'll talk more about that later. But I just want to introduce you, Marie, because when I came to you, I've known you for quite a while. Like I said, I've used your skincare. I came to see you at Fortnum and Mason's, which is when you're in London, is where you're based.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And I explained everything to you, and explained that, when I was 21, they put me through the menopause and all of this lot. And you said, well, I'm going to help you. Let's try.
Well, see, the thing is, from my point of view, first of all, each and every one of you are different. So when we're talking about endometriosis, a lot of people put things in boxes, but you're all individual, you're all unique. And these are symptoms that are created through so many different factors. And first and foremost, I'm not a doctor, so if anyone has got any issues with endometriosis or pain, always consult your GP first. My port of call is more of a holistic well-being. So rather than thinking, okay, we've got endometriosis here, let's do a laparoscopy, let's do this, let's give you some hormones, let's do whatever we can, I look at, well, hang on a minute, let's look at what's causing imbalances in the body. So as you've said, endometriosis can be caused by many different factors. It can be hereditary, it can be diet, it can be lifestyle, it can be hormonal, it can be medication, all sorts of different things. But for me, I look deeper and wider.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for people to get their head around. But when you first came to see me, do you remember I said, oh, let me do your chip? And you said, oh, well, yeah, it sort of helped. It didn't really help. And I said, right, okay. And I left it. And then you put a post over Christmas and you was in debilitating pain and agony. And I said to you, right, okay, look, if you give me 3 months, and I said to you, didn't I, that really, ideally, it can be 18 months to 2 years. But I think 3 months you did absolutely amazing, because it is a condition. It's not something that it's going to go away. Yeah. You have to manage it. But it proved that within that 3 months that you saw some results. No,
definitely. And I think that, you know, when we talk about going to the doctor, by the way, I just want to touch on that once more. When we talk about going to the doctor, you have to do that, like Marie says. But what you need to do is you need to make sure you are telling them, if you're in the worst pain ever, you tell them that you're in 10 times more pain than you've ever been in, because they don't know much about it. You need to be referred to the gynecological department. The GP can't really do anything. That's not their fault. It's just not their specialist. So you must really make sure you're like, no, this is really ruining my life in so many ways. Yeah. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out. But what Marie was saying with the holistic approach is also, I think a lot of people, Marie, like, more people now are more open to the holistic approach, aren't they? And I remember, I don't know if it was you, I feel like it must have been you, said something to me a long time ago, which was that Western medicine is obviously incredible. It's an incredible source. It's amazing. But Chinese medicine has been around for thousands and thousands of years. So that holistic kind of approach has been around forever. Yeah. And it's like Western medicine is the child.
And you see, Western medicine is very, very linear, but Eastern medicine goes deeper and wider. It's like an onion. So you can peel back one layer and you can get a result for the other 2 or 3 layers. Yeah. Also, Western medicine or allopathic medicine is great for trauma care. Like, this is not an attack on Western medicine, because it is amazing. But Western medicine is more in the business of disease management rather than health care in that instance. Like when you go to the doctor, it's all about managing the disease rather than working out what the health problem is. So what I do, and what with Eastern medicine, it's all about this energetics, which a lot of people think is a bit woo-woo. I mean, like I've coined the name all of a sudden of the Witch of the West End, but it's because you can't see it. Because we all resonate at all different frequencies, you know, and disease starts energetically. So if we can work out energetically, and then from that, your diet and your lifestyle, and backing up and boosting it and working and resetting everything, you've got a much better chance, rather than suppressing and just trying to fix so that you're swan on water. So you'll have anti-inflammatories, painkillers and things like that, which in itself are good, but they also have side effects. So it's a little bit like a pepper gun approach. So if you've got pain, we'll give you a painkiller that's targeting the pain, but it can also cause other things like bloating. It can cause brain fog, all other bits and pieces. Whereas this work specifically on the layers that we're dealing with.
So the thing that you did for me when we first met, which there was a few things that I remember that I won't ever forget. Firstly, that you told me, which this for me made it make complete sense. You said that within your DNA, it's like a memory bank. It remembers everything that you've ever been through in your life, not just medical, but emotional. So any trauma, any grief, any joy, you know, anything.
And as well as your genetics as well, like depending on what family line you come from, there are things called miasmas. So you said that your mum had endometriosis. So that is a genetic stamp. It's almost like a stamp in her passport that's come through your genetic line. So it's remembered it, you see.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you started by looking at my feet. So let's talk about, if someone was to phone you, they'd have a consultation with you over Skype or Zoom or whatever, but you like to look at the bottom of people's feet. So why is that?
Well, I don't do it to everyone. I only do it to certain people. Like when you first came to me, you was a bit skeptic, and I said to you about, you've got to cut out alcohol, and you was going, I can't do that. I love my Aperol Spritz and my Prosecco. Life's too short. I can't do that. And I thought, right, okay. So some people I go in softly. The thing is with the feet, because I look at people's feet and I can pick things out, people go, oh my God, and then they're switched on.
Can I tell you my one that you did with me? You did two with me. So Marie literally looked at my feet, and the first thing she said was, well, you were born with forceps. And I was like, what the hell? How do you know that? Because I was like, she said, well, it's the way that your feet sit. And then the second thing you said to me was, you're the second child. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm the eldest. And you were like, no, you're not. And I was like, well, no, I am. I know I'm the eldest of 7. I'm the first child. Like, there was no one before me. She was like, phone your mum. So I phoned my mum, and I asked my mum, and she was like, well, yeah, I had a miscarriage before you. And I never, ever knew that. And I was like, and then I was like, okay, I'm in. Because
it shows, and there's nothing psychic about it, honestly, because people think that there's something psychic about it. I always say that the body is like a human novel. I only know how to read the sentences, and anybody can do it. I used to teach therapists with it. It's only because I get a bit obsessive over it that I'm switched on. And also, over 35 years, I've taken pictures of people's feet, backs, ears, faces from all over the world. It then acts as clues along the way that you do it. So when I was saying about that you're second conceived, there's a difference from being firstborn, which you are, but you're second conceived. Yeah. And it throws people, it gets their head. So, so I don't do the feet all the time. Sometimes I do, because I can tell certain things as well with the face. Like you can tell if a person's like a swan on water paddling like hell underneath, if they're outwardly really confident, but inwardly they take a lot of stress and anxiety. Mm-hmm. So usually I would do a consultation, but I ask a lot of questions about what your diet and lifestyle is, about what times you're eating, about what line conception you are. So again, you said about your sister not having endometriosis, but you are. But being second conceived comes from mother's ancestral line. So that myism comes down.
What is a myism?
So a myism is a little bit like a muddy footprint. It's a genetic information. Now let's just say if somebody in your genetic line had tuberculosis, okay? You might have a frequency that shows tuberculosinum. So it doesn't mean to say that you've got that, but you could have a weakness in your lung meridian because of that myisma that's come down. So your myisma is definitely something to do with the uterus and the womb, but that could also be linked to certain other pathogenic influences like heavy metals and parasites and molds and funguses, which is what people freak out about. But we have so many different of those things in us. We have to have them. We have to have viruses. We have to have parasites and molds in us, because it creates our own diverse community that is essential for overall health. So when things happen like they do, our body can be adaptable to it. You see, it's all about evolving. So people think that we're just human beings with just a lung and a heart and a gut. We're not. We are full of energetic influences. When we're first conceived, the sperm and the egg meets, and it has days of gestation, resting, and then it rapidly divides to create the fetus. That first division creates something called the finger of God, or the first line of fascia. And out of that, first organ to come out of is your gut, and everything else then comes out. Wow. So that's why your gut is not only known as your second brain, it's always the first port of call. It's the king of the organs that you always go to. And that's why I always start the first process of the opening channels, 4 to 6 weeks of working with the gut and the whole alimentary canal, because we're not talking about the gut. The alimentary canal is where we chew and where we poo and everything in between. So that's why the first 4 to 6 weeks is so important. I don't focus on the endometriosis. I focus on resetting, okay? And that's when the first chip comes into play, and that's where we're sort of like balancing the energies. So even though you're doing it materialistically, and physically and mechanically, we've also got to work energetically. So we've got a double-pronged approach, you see.
So explain to people what the chips are, and then we'll go into what we did for me and how it can help other people. But when you're talking about the chips, because obviously I know what it is, but how would you explain it?
So first of all, with programs, regardless of what you have. I mean, obviously with you, it was endometriosis. I always look at testing people, okay, energetically. It's like I say, all dis-ease or imbalance in the body starts energetically. So it starts off where I send you a kit and you send me back a tiny little pinprick of your finger blood, okay, tiny little spots. Now, the blood I'm not interested in. It's the energetic information that's all stored in that DNA. Then I test against all different frequencies that are what might be causing imbalance. So these frequencies could be including your meridian frequencies, the frequencies of the uterus, because every single thing has a specific signature. And that also includes sort of like chemical strains. So these are chemical strains, don't forget, that we implement through our body throughout our lifetime, but also every day. Now, these can be chemical strains through food, through makeup and body things, through our nails, through, all sorts of different things. Heavy metals, people think heavy metals are just from amalgam fillings, your metal fillings. But we get heavy metals from fish, we get heavy metals from cooking in aluminium pans, from tin foil. There's no two ways about it. I would never say you've got to cut all of it because it's impossible. You can't. Yeah. It's impossible. But what we have to do within that time span, you have to reduce as much inflammation as possible.
And which is actually, for me, made the biggest difference. You're right. It's like when you tested all mine, and I obviously went to see you, so we did kind of a lot of it one-to-one. But when you did all of mine, and the stuff that you could tell me, I was blown away. Another thing that you told me when you were testing was that you didn't know where my endometriosis was in my body. Obviously, I know. But you said your majority of your endometriosis is on your left-hand side. And that is almost like your father's side. And obviously caused by the grief of losing my dad, a lot of it could have been made worse by that. It's things like that I was like...
Because you see... in Oriental diagnosis, the lungs are brother and sister to the skin, but they're also linked heavily to reproduction. Okay. Yeah. And you'll often find as well that under emotional stress and trauma, you'll wake up between 3 and 5, which I think you did as well. You was having issues with your sleep, wasn't you? Yeah. You'll find that these emotional type people lock down. It's what we call the silent sobber. All right. So sometimes the skin cries, or sometimes you'll wake up between 3 and 5 and you'll have this restless sleep, or you'll find that you're absolutely shattered, but you'll go to bed and your brain's like... And the left, especially with emotional connotations, link with the father.
Yeah. And what Marie asked me to do, which was summer, and that's why I was like, don't be silly. But then, like Marie said, as soon as in December, I had one of the worst periods I've ever had, that I can remember, because honestly, between the ages of probably 14 and 17, the amount of times I had to go to hospital, and I was rushed to A&E for collapsing, being in like so much pain, throwing up. No one knew what was wrong with me because I actually didn't get diagnosed till I was 21. No one knew. And it felt like I was dying like every single month. It was horrendous. And I've managed my periods really well and as much as I can. And Theo's obviously amazing at helping me through that pain. And I just get on with it. I honestly just get on with it. Yoga has been a huge help for me. So is swimming. December, it was on Christmas Day. I was at my auntie's house. I honestly had the worst period of my life. It was so embarrassing because I was literally there on Christmas Day and I stood up and there was literally blood everywhere on my auntie's white sofa. I was so mortified because there was people in the house that were like family friends as well. I texted my cousin and she was opposite me and then she got everyone to go in the kitchen. And I literally had to crawl upstairs. Like, honestly, it was like the worst. It was horrendous. It was so horrendous. And my auntie was like, what the hell, Lisa? And I was like, I know. And she said, right, this is it now. You have to do something about this because I've been having this pain since I was 11, but obviously this was so bad. And then that's when I spoke about it. And then you said, right, we've got to do this. And I was like, absolutely. And honestly, it was hard, but it's one of the best things that I've ever done. I've been eating gluten for 13 years because my dad was celiac and I was recommended to give it up at the time. So I haven't actually eaten it for a long time. So Marie told me to give up gluten, dairy, caffeine, sugar, red meat, and Prosecco, i.e. alcohol. Now, for me personally, and I had to do this whole routine, which, like I said, we'll speak about in a minute, I didn't find the food actually that hard. And actually, for the first month, I didn't find any of it hard because we were in January. that memory of that pain was still very much there.
Yeah.
So I knew it was going to make me feel better. And at first it made me feel worse, which you told me it would do.
Like purging.
Yes.
So sometimes with toxicity, our bodies goes through something called homotoxicosis. And that means that either our body pushes toxins intracellularly, so that's where you get that pain, or you get feeling of like brain fog or lethargy.
Mine was my legs, wasn't it? Do you remember? I messaged you. Mine was legs. It was like, yeah, I felt like I had flu, and my legs were so painful I couldn't walk properly. And I messaged you, and you told me to get some bath salts, which I did, and to have 20 minutes minimum in the bath, and to put my legs up. And within 2 days, it was absolutely fine. But
but actually it's a good sign, and it's the same with the skin. Some people, if I put them on a program, their skin flares up or they start getting breakouts, and I say, please, the last thing you should do is stop, because people panic and they go, oh my God, I feel terrible, I feel like shit, I don't want to do anything. But actually it's a good sign, because it's your body getting rid of all of that toxicity, drinking plenty of water, going for walks, and just resting. And I'm always saying, it's not a case of I give you this program and it's a cut and shut. We check in, we talk again. If ever you've got any problems, you check back in. I'm there holding your hand all the time.
Yeah.
I watched that thing that you did with Ree, and you was talking about cheese and the difference between her eating cheese and you eating cheese. The difference is if we're talking about allergens or intolerances, I always say cut that out for a good 4 weeks and then slowly introduce one food group. If you introduce a food group and you haven't got any allergen to it or any bloating, it's not a main stressor. But if you're introducing another one and you start getting those pains again, or you start getting reactions, that's clearly a main stressor. You know,
which was amazing for me actually to do that for 3 months, because what I have noticed is that one thing that Theo noticed immediately, and that you'd noticed as well, and I think it's come back a little bit now because I have been eating dairy, is a blocked nose. I obviously have eaten some cheese since, but I'm definitely eating it less now. But when I gave up dairy, I could not believe the difference. It wasn't necessarily in my stomach, it was my blockage in my nose.
Yeah. I noticed it, and I said to you, I hope you don't mind me saying this, because I've really noticed that because it was quite nasally sometimes when you were speaking, and it was just complete. It went completely.
Yeah, it did.
Your sleep improved.
Oh my God. Okay, that for me, apart from the lesser pain, which we'll talk about in a bit, and also the bloating, the sleep is. I had the worst sleep. My mind never stops. I'm always thinking, what's next? I have never, as far as I remember, had 8 hours sleep solid. Now I sleep for 8 hours every night. I was waking up constantly and could not get back to sleep. And like you say, like 3 o'clock, between 3 and 5, that was such a key point where I literally was just awake. And it was so frustrating and horrendous because, lack of sleep is awful. That for me, I can't thank you enough.
Well, it's not me. It's you. It is you. All I do is try and sort of like reveal options for you.
Yeah.
But the hard work is literally you, because it isn't easy. It is hard. Once you get your head around the cooking, for those people who aren't vegan or aren't dairy free or gluten free, it is really hard to do it. And some people say, I can't give up this, or I don't want to give that, or, classic thing. I say, right, okay, you've got to give up that. And they go, really? And I say, look, you don't have to do anything, but how bad do you want to feel better?
Yeah.
That's the key. That's what you've got to ask yourself.
Why did you tell me in particular with my endometriosis? Do you tell everyone to do that kind of food thing? Is the food thing, do you think, a huge thing for endometriosis?
Yeah, I think a point of call, you've got to look at things that are causing inflammatory reactions, okay?
Yeah.
So all of these conditions are exacerbated by your pH in your body, inflammation and excessive mucus. So that is why those foods are inflammatory foods. Go on Google and just type in an anti-inflammatory diet. There's so many different things out there. That's the first port of call. Reducing things like dairy and red meats and inflammatory foods will then also reduce mucus in your system. Now, it's really important that we have mucus, because mucus stops any bacteria from forming and it allows everything to move. It's very, very important for our system. However, sometimes we can create too much mucus. And when we create too much mucus, that's why what happens when we have a cold. When we have a cold, we create excessive mucus because it's meant to get out all of those bacteria and those nasties. But when we're creating mucus, we can get postnasal drip, even mucus from down below. We can get mucus from every orifice. And when we create excessive mucus, you get an overload of bacteria and viruses, and especially Candida. Candida albicans is one of the biggest things. And that can also play a part of endometriosis.
What is that? What is that, Candida?
It's a fungus, one that we get when we get thrush, oral thrush, and we get thrush down below. But it actually resides throughout the whole alimentary canal. So sometimes you can get an overgrowth of Candida in the esophagus, and it can cause breakouts around the mouth. You can get breakouts around the nose. So by cutting out all of those type of foods, it reduces that Candida overgrowth. But obviously look at other supplements like good probiotic and an anti-spore supplement, which is why I brought out Eradicate.
I did notice a huge difference with that, almost within about 2 weeks, where every day before doing this, I would have too much mucus, and you'd almost like, you know, it sounds gross, but you know when you like sniff and you swallow a bit of like snot or whatever it is, mucus.
Yeah.
I used to have, phlegm, that's the word, better than snot. I used to do that multiple times every single day. And, you know, obviously that's gross. Now I haven't at all. I don't do that at all.
Yeah, but the worst thing that you can do is swallow it. Even now, for any condition, just put it in a tissue and throw it away. Don't forget, we've got other toxins as well in our gut. The gut is the main thing, you know, making sure that you're pooing properly. Because I was always asking you, as you poo, as you poo today.
I was like, same as yesterday. We're getting Theo was like, well, you've now started a 10 o'clock at night poo. And again, I have IBS as well as endometriosis. Who knows if they're the same thing? Honestly, guys, this is the most detail you've ever heard about me in your life, but whatever. I'm trying to help you. Like rabbit droppings.
Yeah.
You know, forever. And then suddenly they were like proper, and I was like, oh my God. So things like that, because I used to get so constipated, and I used to message you going, God, in the first couple of weeks, and now I don't at all. The other thing I just have to say that I've just thought about that hasn't happened is I haven't got a cold sore and I haven't got a thrush. Two things that I used to get quite regularly that I haven't done that. And just so you guys know, I am back to eating stuff and introducing stuff, and I've kind of started to realize what it is the problem, but I am doing 5 days a week of continuing.
Endometriosis can have a massive impact physically and emotionally, and your emotional state is key here. Yeah. A lot of women having issues with conceiving as well, because that has a massive emotional impact. But you have to always believe that you can conceive. Your uterus, you've got to think of your uterus as not a hostile place. Don't visualise it as loads of this endometriosis. You've got to look on it as like a nursery. Visualise these peonies opening up, and you're preparing that nursery. When you're doing the opening channels, the next stage we look at certain parasites. Do you remember you was taking that tincture that nearly made you vom? And I was so proud of you again. You did really well with that, the wormwood tincture. Because what it does, because often certain parasites can play a part of endometriosis in the uterus. So that's the next stage that we do. We do a nice parasite cleanse and then build that up energetically with the chip. So all along we've got the supplements and we've got a chip. We've got the supplements and we've got a chip. And the chip is programmed specifically for each stage. And then the last stage is more to do with your balancing your hormones.
Obviously you subscribe to what it is individual, and it's all homeopathic medicine, right?
And there's supplements that are high grade supplements. They haven't got any bulking agents, and they are prescriptive only. Because the thing is, when people go on with certain vitamins, they think, oh, well, that sounds good, I'll have a bit of that, and that sounds good. So they self-prescribe. That's the first thing. And the most important thing, and this is what I've spoken about time and time again, there is no point in you taking supplements if the fundamental foundations are toxic. You have to make sure that you are resetting everything and working with the elimination organs, because it's a little bit like planting or expecting a healthy harvest from a field that has got a toxic waste. If no matter what fertilizer you put on, so let's just say the fertilizer are your supplements, no matter what fertilizer you put on that field, if the field is toxic, you're not going to get a healthy harvest.
Yeah.
What we have to do is excavate that field, start feeding it and laying down the foundation so that when you put the seeds in, you're going to get a good, healthy harvest, which is what we did. And that's what it takes. A lot of people now want a quick fix, which is why they go to, they'll take the painkillers, they'll take this, they'll do that. It might give you a small bit of relief. But I wanted to say, look, I believe in it. I know, because I've treated so many people, and I never ever claim that I can treat endometriosis or treat IBS or treat this. I always claim, let's see how we can balance what's imbalanced, because that's my job. My job is not to treat endometriosis. That's your doctor's job. Yeah. My job is to find out what is imbalanced, how can we work on your diet, and how can we energetically reset you through supplemental support and your diet. And you've done it. It does take time. You've got to be committed to the program, and also it is quite expensive. And when people say, oh, please, can you just recommend just one or two things? There's no point. It's a waste of money, because the opening channels works on the whole process. It's better, really, that you just focus on what you can do, reducing anti-inflammatory foods, going on a clean diet, cutting out the things that you can do. Also, sanitary care, making sure you go with organic sanitary care, because
I've been doing since you told me that.
A lot of people don't realise that your regular sanitary care is laden with lots of formaldehydes and bleaching agents and fine cotton filaments. And when you're actually placing that in your vagina, which is the most absorbent part of your body, it can create things called xenoestrogens, and it can also create further inflammation that then can exacerbate the endometriosis and IBS and skin conditions. So it's like an ongoing thing,
Obviously, it's going to be interesting now when I have my period, like now I've kind of stopped the whole thing. But let's say my period was a 10 in pain, and ovulating as well, because that's also usually very painful for me. I'd say that it went down to like probably a 5, which is like crazy. And also where they were like 8-9 days before, it went down to more like a normal, really 5 days, but really 2 days of it being like heavy. And also the bloatingness, my stomach would usually be like out here, with no exaggeration. And now, like, it's just not. And I've been able to wear clothes that, I didn't think I'd ever wear again. So what I would say to everyone is, like, it's worth the investment. And like Marie says, if you can't afford to do that to start with, just try the food. Try giving up the food. Try and see what's causing you the issues. But I just feel so much better. I feel like my skin has gone like so good. Like one thing that you noticed, which I look back and notice, my eyes are much whiter because they were going a little bit yellow. It's just, it's made such a big difference, which is why I'm continuing it 5 days a week.
That's good. It's brilliant. It's hard for people to understand about the energetic side of it. It's hard for people to understand what I do. But actually, fundamentally, you've just got to know that as human beings, we are not just 2D creatures. We're not just flesh and bone with a heart and lungs and a gut. We have a mass variety. We're 99% bacteria, walking bacteria, only 1% human cells. Everything else is a diverse, cultural, living, communicating community of cells and bacteria and viruses and pathogens. So how can we all be the same? How can one condition affect us all the same? It's dependent on environmental factors, emotional factors, genetic factors, dietary factors, so many different things.
And also, I'm not doing the chip anymore, but I am still taking the supplements, not all of them, but I'm taking like some of the supplements still, which I'll continue to do.
At the moment, taking Gynacord, aren't you, and Endopath F?
Yeah.
Yes, so they're homeopathic supplements that work primarily on balancing the hormones. But Inflammatone is a really good one to do. But even Calmeric is really good. Eve is fantastic. And 3-Set is very good. That's an adaptogen that's really good to help with hormonal balance and mood and all things like that. And also making sure that you're drinking water. I cannot stress the importance of intracellular hydration, because if you're intracellularly hydrated, your cells have got the energy to take on the information needed from food, from everything else. Water is not enough. You have to have an ionic mineral, really.
You just need to know that I'm so genuine about everything I say. I never bullshit you. I'll only tell you what really works for me, and this has genuinely really worked for me. And actually, It's been 3 months of my life and it's been so worth it. I'm going to be really annoyed with myself if I don't continue it 5 days a week, because I feel like it's made such a difference. And I have never had anything that's been able to help me over the past 20 whatever years more than this has helped me. Marie, like, honestly, I know I've said it like before, but I just thank you so much for everything you've done for me, because like you said, you've been there every time I've WhatsApped you stupid questions, like you've responded like immediately, like you've helped me so much. And I'm just so grateful for that. And
has Theo noticed a difference?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, Theo's kind of blasé to everything, to be honest. But yeah, he's such a caring person, and we've been together 16 years, so he's seen so much of this. But he's been at every single operation that I've been through. You know, it's frustrating for him because he can't physically do anything to really help my pain. And every month, like, you know, I wish I could take a bit of it away. So now it's just amazing for him, because when I'm in pain, now I'm in less pain, obviously.
Yeah.
It's made a difference to him. And
I said to you, look, the worst that you'll get out of this is that you'll have a fantastic detox and you'll feel better.
Yeah.
The best, it has made an impact on the endometriosis. Realistically, this is something that you need to do, like be on the supplements for a good, and cut everything out for a good 18 months. And you've also got to remember that this is a condition that has to be managed, and it's literally a lifestyle change that you have to do.
Yeah.
That's where you get results.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you, Marie. Like I say, there's 1 in 10, it's probably more than that, women that have endometriosis, and it's not spoken about enough. So don't ever be afraid to speak about it. You can always message me. And, you know, if you want to try this, try it. Contact Marie. Let us know how you get on. I want to know as well. And thank you again, Marie.
That's it for this week's Good Vibes Only episode. But there's plenty more wholesome, holistic information where that came from. Check out Marie's website, www.mariereynolds.london.com, or follow Marie on socials. For Marie's products, follow at Marie Reynolds London on Instagram and Facebook, and at Marie Reynolds_London on TikTok. You can also follow Marie's day-to-day content on Instagram. Follow at Marie Reynolds_MRL. Thank you so much for listening to Good Vibes Only. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe to and review the podcast wherever you listen to them. And remember to share the episode too. See you next time.